Well, it's very much a landlord's market in Australia. A new report has come out confirming that rents in almost every capital city have hit their highest levels ever, with vacancy rates at record lows and affordability pressures getting even worse. In fact, this data from Domain shows that people looking for a house to rent in the capitals have experienced a 5% price jump on average in just 3 months. It's rising at a much faster pace than people's wages, which went up by just 0.9%, and overall inflation, which rose by 0.6% in the December quarter. For more on this, let's bring in Nicola Powell, Domain's chief economist. Morning, Nicola. Where are we seeing the biggest rent increases across the country?
We have seen some pretty steep increases over the most recent quarter. You've got to remember that it is the changeover period and the busiest period that we see in the rental calendar. And we do tend to see it is seasonally strong. We have seen some huge jumps in rents, particularly in some of our bigger capital cities. Some of the smaller cities are seeing slightly weaker conditions, such as Hobart and Canberra. But we're particularly Perth has seen some strong increases in rents, but also Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. Most of our capital cities recorded an increase in rent over the March quarter.
And we seem to be trapped in this cycle of never-ending rent rises, far above what many people can afford. When do you think things will improve for renters?
So we are thinking that it is going to reach a tipping point at some point this year. I mean, households can only meet the obligation of rent and only continue to, in terms of we've seen double-digit increases in asking rents for some long period of time. I mean, rents have been rising since 2020. When we have a look overall at the rental market, there are some signs that it is starting to ease. Some of our capital cities have now moved away from their record low vacancy rates. And when you have a look at views per rental listing, which gives us an indication of how many potential renters there are out there per rental listing, this has been easing, and it's been easing for some time now. It's a trend that's pretty entrenched.
And Nicola, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. With rents so high, do you think we'll see an uptick in renters living in squalid, overcrowded conditions? I mean, over the years, we've seen many cases of, for example, 10 international students being forced to squish into tiny 2-bedroom apartments in the CBDs, but still being charged premium rent, simply because the landlord has such huge bargaining power.
This is a serious topic, and it talks about people that are underhoused. And, I think there is a rental affordability ceiling, and that does place real pressure on Australian households. And what you see is people suburb swap, or they go into those extreme conditions where they reconsider going into a house share. We've seen rents been rising since 2020, more or less. And, that has put extreme pressure on household budgets. I'm hoping, though, that once we start to see that cash rate being cut, it should bring investor activity really back to the market, which should provide that much needed rental supply.
And one reason why rents are so high, as you said, is there's not enough housing supply. So do you think the government could do more to address the situation? I imagine there's no quick fix to this.
There's absolutely no quick fix. I mean, this is a rental crisis, but we've got an overall supply shortage across Australia's market overall. We have the housing accord of 1.2 million homes, but that really does need to be delivered. And, I think as it currently stands, overall building approvals have been falling, and that's just, reflecting the overall economic circumstances that we have across Australia. I really think we need to focus on supply. We also need to boost social housing, because I think currently in the rental market, we've got some of those really vulnerable Australians in the private rental market when they actually should be in social homes.
And Nicola, given how much rents have risen by, could this possibly lead to inflation staying even higher for longer, and therefore the Reserve Bank deciding not to cut interest rates this year, which would be disappointing for borrowers?
You make a very good point there, David, because rents are really a thorn in the side of the CPI basket. It is the largest single component, and we have seen rents rise, and it continues to place pressure on inflation. That is likely to continue at least for the rest of this year. I think overall we did see a strong quarter of rental growth, but when you compare it to what we had been seeing over 2022 and into 2023, that pace of growth is lower. So I'm hoping that we are now starting to see a little bit of steam being released from the very tight rental conditions that we have been experiencing.
Nicola, thanks a lot for your insights once again on this very important issue.
Thank you.